and the MSFA Executive Committee, who I've worked with throughout the year. They're strong supporters of training and education, as you know, and we work together very well throughout this year. I think made some improvements in our system. I'd like to also thank the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute, the faculty, staff, and field instructors. They work very hard day in and day out. Last year we conducted 1,720 programs, training 33,893 students. That takes a lot of work, a lot of coordination day in and day out to make it happen. And they do it on a regular basis. So I will just cover a couple things that are going on within the Institute. As many of you know, we're working to develop a new learning management system. That system will allow for a lot of new opportunities for our students, new opportunities for our instructors, quite frankly. We'll be able to operate more in a digital environment. We currently have our registration system totally online. This new system will allow us to be online from the students' first day, first class, all the way through their entire career in the fire service. And it gives a lot of additional features, with regard to blending learning technology, where our programs you'll see in the future will have more and more distance education components at all levels, allowing students to have the opportunity during a class to take part of that class at their own schedule, at their own time, through a computer learning environment. So that's on schedule. We'll be training our faculty, staff, and field instructors over the next several months, and we're looking for that full implementation of that in the fall of this year. We've also worked with the Maryland State Firemen's Association. They had a request for us, and particularly the Recruitment and Retention Committee wanted to be able to know what new fire and EMS members are coming through training programs. And if we could get their contact information, their email, age, address, and things like that, we could give that to them. In the university system, we cannot do that unless the student agrees to it. So when they have a new class now, new students and enrolled in a class, they can check a box, do you want your information sent to the Maryland State Firemen's Association? They check that box, most of them do. Once a month, we download a computer file from our system to the Recruitment and Retention Committee. They then can follow up with these new members and give them benefit information, make them aware of opportunities that are available to them, and so on and so forth. So that's worked very well. We've talked a lot about emergency medical training over the last several years. We made substantial revisions to our programs in that regard, and the success has been very good. Maryland continues to be both at the first attempt of the pass of the EMT exam and the EMR exam, and the third attempt, we exceed the national averages in all cases. So it was a bit of difficulty to get there. A lot of people worked on this issue, but I think we're I'm not saying the system is perfect, I'm not saying where it needs to be totally, but at least regard to the educational aspects of that program, it's gone very well, and as I said, we are above the national average. We're implementing a change July 1st. With regard to our textbook policy. MSFA spends anywhere from $400,000 to $600,000 per year in textbooks. We give a textbook to every student for every class. And I just said before, we have over 33,000 students. The student at the end of the class either returns the book in good condition, or they're allowed the opportunity to purchase the book at 70% off list price. We've been having trouble in some cases catching up with people to either get the book or the fee, to the tune that we're owed over $48,000 right now in our budget. So we're going to have a system, and the system will work like this. And it's actually the same system the University of Maryland uses. If you don't pay your parking fines, if you don't pay your dining room bill, if you don't do anything for the university, guess what? You don't get a diploma. You don't graduate. What we're going to do effective July 1st is at the conclusion of the class, the student will return the book, or the student can purchase the book at 75% off. If they don't do step A or B, we will not release that grade for that class until they make that square. So I think it'll be a better system. If we have difficulties, or we have trouble, we'll be able to address it right up front, resolve it at that point in time. Right now, we're trying to catch these things several months after the fact, and it's just not working. So that would be a change, but it'll be a small change in that regard. We're also coming out in July with a new emergency medical officer program. We've been working with the National Emergency Medical Services Managers Association. They've developed a 3-tier program for EMS officer training. Before we had an EMS officer program here for many years. We basically took Fire Officer 1 and made it to an EMS program. This new program is specifically designed for emergency medical service officers. The first level, and there's 3 levels, one is supervisor, one is manager, one is executive. The first level program that we currently have is 48 hours. The new program will be 30 hours. So it'll be 30 hours at the supervisor level, and then over the next several months, we'll bring on both the manager and executive with that. We will be the first accredited program in the United States to be able to teach this program. So I think that's a big step forward, too. We have a lot of new curriculum, a lot of new work going on, as I said, with technology and things for the students. And I wanted to just quickly highlight that. One last thing, as most of you know, I did make a decision regarding my future in the last few months actually. I've worked for the Prince George's County Fire Department 25 years. I've been the director of the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute for 25 years. 50 years is a pretty long time, even though it seemed to go by pretty fast. And I will say this, in my 50-year career, I've enjoyed going to work every day. And a lot of people can't say that. I've been proud of that. I've worked for 2 great organizations, the Prince George's County Fire and EMS Department and the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute. I have been very fortunate. I've worked for 25 MSFA presidents, 25 MSA executive committees over a lot of issues throughout the years. I think we've had a great partnership. I think we've worked well together, respected each other, and then one of the pluses or one of the pleasures of this position is being able to work with the Maryland State Firemen's Association. Because I know when we need help, we need assistance, that association is always there to help us. So I won't be leaving until January. I'm not making a retirement speech. I'm just letting you know that. The reason I announced it now, it'll give the university 6 months to select a new director. There'll be a search and selection process for that out of the university president's office, and that will take place over the next several months. So that concludes my report. Let me just end with a sincere thank you to each of you, and continue on as you have for the next 50 years. Thank you.
Traveling bag. Well, Steve, I can't thank you enough for the partnership and everything. This is one of our best partners we have. All our partners are valuable, MIFRI especially. And what's more even special, besides presenting you with our 125th anniversary mug, Stephen is going to be retiring next year with over 50 years of service in the fire service in general, 25 with MIFRI. And his experience and service to fire service is just unfounded, and we sincerely appreciate that. We wish him well. I'm sure you'll probably be out in the water or something enjoyable, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
They want a picture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You can't get off that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maryland Fire and Rescue Education Training Commission.
Now I introduce Maryland Fire Rescue Education and Training Commission.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, fellow delegates. President Davis, Vice Presidents Bilger and Blair, honored guests, delegates, on behalf of the Secretary of Higher Education, James D. Fielder, and Chairman Mike Clements, I bring you greetings. Over the last year, the Maryland Fire Rescue Education and Training Commission have met numerous times to discuss issues that have affected the fire service training needs of this great state. The Commission continues to monitor the funding to implement the Charles W. Riley Scholarship Program. We are happy to announce that we have 174 applicants for the 2017-2018 award year. This is up from the previous year of 138 applicants. We encourage you to advise your members to go into the Maryland Higher Education website for the application and rules for the Riley Scholarship Program. We believe that this is one of the most necessary funding mechanisms for our students that are coming from high school, and going into the college level programs. It allows them to meet all the needs that they have of requirements within the volunteer fire and EMS, and still meet the needs for the higher education for our students. We are still planning meetings with the Secretary of Higher Education to develop a more meaningful dialogue of the roles and responsibilities of our commission. Each year, the commission has prepared a yearly report that is submitted to the Secretary of Higher Education and the Governor. Over the last few years, we've been unable to provide each department with a copy of that report due to budget constraints. This year, of course, is no different. You can find that report on the Maryland Higher Education Commission website. In closing, we look forward to working with President Bilger and the other officers of the Maryland State Firemen Association in the coming year. We wish President Davis well as he finishes his term of office, and we wish all of you success in the balance of your convention. Thank you.
Now from MSQRB, Mike Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Maryland State Firemen's Association, officers of the MSFA, and honored guests, it's an honor and a privilege for me to stand before you today and provide to you the annual report for the Maryland Fire Service Personnel Qualifications Board. In 1986, leaders of the Maryland Fire Service, including career and volunteer members, and representatives from each of the jurisdictions, each county, and the major cities got together at the Annapolis State House based on recommendations made by the Maryland Fire Rescue Education Training Commission in a 1982 report. That recommendation was to establish a certification system in the state of Maryland. I'm pleased to announce here today that that system was not only created, but it remains very stable and it continues to prosper. By the end of this summer, we will be reaching a milestone with our 150,000th certification. That's 150,000 certificates that we've issued during our 31 years of existence. Everything from Firefighter 1 to Fire Officer 4, and any of the NFPA technical standards in between, as well as some uniquely Maryland standards, including EMS Officer 1 and 2, and Burn Technician and Burn Instructor. We're very proud of that accomplishment, but the most significant thing that we've done is we've created all of this without state control, without state involvement. We formed ourselves as a nonprofit corporation, and we do this without any mandate, as most states do, and we do it voluntarily. And today you can travel from Oakland to Ocean City, and in every fire station in Maryland, you will see people that are going out and getting credentialed, getting their certifications, whether it be the entry-level firefighter or whether it be the person who becomes the fire chief. Our standards have become the standards for the Maryland State Fire Service, and it's because of all of you. I'd like to recognize at this time all those people who may be in the audience who serve as members of the board, either as jurisdictional representatives or alternates. Please stand. One of them is in the back. Okay, they're out doing certification work. That's why they couldn't make it here. But we thank the Maryland Fire Service for all of their assistance. And again, we're on target this summer to hit our 150,000th certification. We continue to be strong. We're going to be receiving next month an accreditation site visit from the National Pro Board, and we hope that we will be successful in that and be accredited to certify for another 5 years. A great part of our success is due to the Maryland Volunteer Fire Service and those of you across the state who have not only become certified, but have also become involved in our board. And I'd like to acknowledge the work of President Davis and all of the officers and members of the organization for their continued support. So with that, as a testimony to our success, I'd like to call upon President Davis out here, and I want to give him a copy of our annual report and a small token of appreciation from the board. Thank you. No problem.
Thank you, Chief. Now, Terry Thompson from MEMA.
Good afternoon. I bring you greetings on behalf of Executive Director Russ Strickland, who's out of the country presenting at a seminar this week. MEMA is an agency of the state government with primary responsibility and authority for emergency preparedness, policy, and for coordinating. In order to meet our responsibilities and provide efficient coordination, the agency is now organized into 4 major sections under the executive leadership. First is the Chief of Staff and the regional programs. Then we have the administration, the operations, and just brought up the risk reduction and strategy section. We are now establishing the Maryland Emergency Management System with some changes that will be coming forth. We're continuing to get back to the basics in emergency management to ensure readiness when time comes. We're trying to take the budget and the grant management and unit and look for efficiencies as well as ways to continue to improve grant monitoring and its ties to our budget. One of the things that we've also been working on with the Maryland State Firemen's Association, along with the Maryland Fire Chiefs and the military department, is we're working on a system for swift water rescue and boat rescue. We're finalizing that right now and hope when the executive director gets back that we can give the final draft report to him for his approval. The big thing that we've been involved in, and I'm sure most of you've heard, is that the governor declared a state of emergency on March the 1st of this year in reference to the heroin and opioid situation here in the state. It was the first state to declare a state of emergency, and this is being led by the executive director, Clay Stamp, for this opioid and heroin operation. We're leading the coordination of this up at MEMA, where they've located the command center and facilities, so they're there on a daily basis and working there. We've also been supporting the local emergency management offices that are facilitating the local actions to combat the heroin and opioid crisis. I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that and be reaching out to the fire service. We've been doing that through MIMS and everything, and that will continue. And we want to thank you for all your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. And now, Monty Mitchell from DNR.
Thank you, President Davis. Good afternoon, officers, past presidents, delegates, members, and guests. I'm glad to be with you this afternoon to give an update on activities from the Maryland Forest Service. During 2016, the Maryland Forest Service responded to 121 wildfires that burned just 242 acres. That's a significant reduction from our 10-year average in acres. The leading cause of wildfires in Maryland continues to be debris burning and arson, which accounts for almost 2/3 of our fires. Also in 2016, the agency and partners conducted 41 prescribed burns for hazardous fuel reductions on 1,120 acres. So far in 2017, the agency's responded to 77 wildfires, burning 2,123 acres. Maryland continues to support our national mobilization of wildland firefighters across the country. Last year, we dispatched 12 single resource individuals, 3 of our 20-person Type 2 IA wildland fire crews, 1 of our Type 4 wildland engines, and 3 of our Type 6 wildland engines. Also, we dispatched a strike team of equipment to assist the Pennsylvania Division of Forestry. These firefighters assisted on incidents across the country, including California, Colorado, Georgia, Idaho, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Montana, West Virginia, and Wyoming. So we get folks all over where there is a need. There have been some significant changes in our out-of-state fire program this year from the U.S. Forest Service, and any participants that are not full-time DNR employees will now be sponsored through the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia. However, with an agreement we've worked out with them, the Maryland Forest Service will continue to train, red card, and dispatch all the Maryland personnel on assignments. The 2016 Volunteer Fire Assistance Program, the grants were awarded to 39 fire departments across the state in 12 different counties. We had another successful year. All 39 of those departments completed their approved grants and were reimbursed $86,785. The VFA grants are 50-50 match grants that help the volunteer fire departments enhance wildfire protection in their local communities. The 2017 VFA grant application period is currently open, and we are accepting applications. Also, we've just received a funding enhancement for the program from the U.S. Forest Service, and we will have $98,000 in funding available this year. So we have 50-50 match grants available, up to $3,000 to a department, with $6,000 in qualifying expenses. These applications are available online through our website. Just go to the Maryland Forest Service website, click on Wildland Fire, and you'll get to our homepage, and you can download the application from there, or you can contact one of our fire staff members. The application deadline this year is July the 17th, so you still got several weeks to get an application in. Once all the applications are received, they'll be reviewed and ranked, and then the grant award should be announced by the end of September. So we certainly encourage all the departments out there to apply for a grant this year. In early 2016, the Maryland Forest Service completed an MOU with the USDA Forest Service to participate in the DoD Federal Firefighter Property Program, FFP. It's new to Maryland in participating in this program, and it gives us access to a higher level of screening for DoD property. In the first year of being in this program, we acquired over $1 million worth of equipment that came to Maryland at no cost. We also continue to participate in the Federal Excess Property Program, and we acquired an additional $474,000 worth of property through that program in 2016. Again, all of the property is acquired at no cost to our agency, and it can either be utilized by the Forest Service ourselves, or we can assign it through cooperative agreements to volunteer fire departments out there. If you have questions on the program, you can see our guys down at our display booth, and they would certainly give you some more information on that. We have a total now of both programs. We have 367 items of property in the state that have an original acquisition value to the federal government of over $7.7 million. So it's a great program that's helping get some good equipment in the state. Also, the Forest Service was awarded a $150,000 wildfire risk reduction grant this year. It's called Fire Adapted Communities on Maryland's Eastern Shore. This grant is going to help us continue to fund our FireWise Maryland program here on the Eastern Shore for the next 2 years. In previous years' fundings, we got a grant last year, and that is helping to continue the FireWise Maryland program in the rest of the state. The FireWise Maryland program helps us to develop community wildfire protection plans. Those are response plans that are developed in conjunction with volunteer fire departments and recommend activities that communities can take to make their homes and communities safer from wildfires. Currently, we have 66 of those plans in place across the state that cover 1,064 communities. Finally, I'd like to say to everyone to enjoy the convention and the events of your 125th convention. Thank you to the leadership and the presidents, officers, and the member companies out there. You as volunteers are the critical folks that assist our agency in our mission of wildfire suppression and prevention. So for that, I say thank you.
Thank you, Marty. We appreciate everything you guys do as always. And of course for you, we have the regular, our new 125th mug, as well as our convention bag. And again, we can't thank you enough for all that you do.
Appreciate it, Mr.
Thank
President. Thank you.
Come on out here. Don't forget to pick up that other bag on the way out. See you around. Okay, next for our feature speaker today, I introduce Mr. Chief Mike Healy. He's going to introduce Mr. Scott Geiselhart. If you haven't seen his presentation, I encourage you to hit your friends up, come in here and see this. I got to see, had the pleasure of seeing Scott give his presentation. I was down at Florida last year for the IAFC VCOS section, Volunteer Combination Officer section. Very informative, great programs focused on health, mental health of the firefighters and the safety of them. So please welcome Mr. Mike Healy, Chief Mike Healy.
Good afternoon, folks. As the President just said, my name is Mike Healy. I'm Chief of the Central Nyack Fire Department in about 10 miles north of New York City. And about 5 years ago, I got involved in a program with the National Volunteer Fire Council called Share the Load. For those of you who don't know about the program, I used to be the clinical director of the New York City Transit Authority, and about 8 years ago, I retired. When I retired, I went to a friend of mine who also worked in that field, and we put together. I always wanted a place for firefighters with behavioral health programs in this country to have a place to call. And we got together with the National Volunteer Fire Council and this friend of mine, Mike Blackburn, who's a retired battalion chief from Providence, Rhode Island. And we started this program. You may have seen some of the information on it. The fire line number is 888-731-3473, which means fire. And we started the program. We answer about 1,000 calls a year. The calls come directly to me. If I don't pick up, they go to Mike Blackburn. Along the way, we've run into some pretty serious things. The other night, I received a call from a captain in New Jersey. Some of you may have seen it. His crew was sent out to respond to an EMS call, and it turned out it was their chief, and their chief had committed suicide. The stuff that we go through, Scott and I today are doing a presentation in room 203 at 2:45, and the name of the presentation is called The Price We Pay. We go out there day and night, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, and we're always running into what everybody else is running away from. Eventually, we have to pay a toll. In July of 2014, my co-presenter today called that number. He was severely traumatized from his time in the fire service. He does a fantastic presentation. He's going to do a very fast presentation today because we have a very limited amount of time. So if you see me going like this, telling him he's got 5 minutes left, it's either that or I'll just throw this at him, and we'll get him done. But with that, I'd like to introduce a man who has an extreme amount of courage, as you're about to see. And with that, I'll introduce ex-Assistant Chief Scott Geiselhart.
Thanks, Mike. As Mike said, my name is Scott Geiselhart. I'm a firefighter from Frazee, Minnesota, and I've been a firefighter for 21 years. When I first got on the fire department, we didn't do any auto extrication. We didn't do any drownings, any ice water rescues. We had a fire department close to us that came and did all the rescues. And what we noticed was it was taking about 15, 20 minutes for that truck to come through our town. And as you well know, the golden hour is pretty important when it comes to auto extrication. We have to get them to the hospital in an hour to make a big difference. So we decided we're going to put together an auto extrication rig. And low on funds, but we took a 1-ton pickup, put the jaws of life in it, Gumby suits, ice water rescue stuff. I mean, way overloaded this truck. And started doing auto extrication. And we got good at it. We trained very hard. We had some mechanics on our fire department. We trained really hard. We got good. We started going on calls, and we had some bad runs. We had a lot of fatalities. And as a firefighter, I kept telling myself, hey, we're there to make things better. We're not causing these accidents. We're there to make them better, and they're not my fault. We're doing the best we can. Well, they started to build on me, and I didn't realize it. I started to get angry, started to have some nightmares. I started to drink a lot, started to stay away from my family, go to the bars, and I didn't realize what was going on in my life. And I started yelling at my kids, yelling at my ex-girlfriend. And in 2010, after this building, we had a car accident. And it was in a small town like Frazee, it's 1,300 population. We know a lot of the people we're going to these accident scenes with, or the ice water rescues. In 2010, we had a bad accident. It was a high school kid. Rolled over in a swamp, and we got there in 10 minutes, and he was underwater for 10 minutes. We got him out. Everything was picture perfect. We did an awesome rescue. They revived him, got him to Fargo, North Dakota, which is about an hour away from where we cut him out, or where we took him out. And he was doing great. Everything was going good. And things went south, and he died. He passed away from a lung infection. And the basket was full. That one put me over the edge. I killed him. I was in the water with the Gumby suit on. I pulled him out of that vehicle. I pulled him through the water, got him to shore, and I told myself I did something wrong. I put something in his mouth. I gave him that lung infection. I didn't do the rescue right. I started blaming myself for his death. I started blaming myself for every other car accident and drowning that we went on, that we lost people. I told myself I was jinxed. I started really isolating myself, and I was into meth. After that, I was doing a line of meth a day minimum. I mean, I was doing meth all the time. And the anger was out of control. The isolation, I started pulling away from my family. I owned a repair shop. I started staying down there 20 hours a day. The nightmares got to the point where I didn't want to sleep anymore. And in 2012, after my girlfriend left me, I started doing a line of meth an hour to stay awake. I decided I wasn't going to sleep until I was dead. I wanted to die. I didn't want to be alive anymore because of the nightmares and the flashbacks, the anger that I didn't understand what was going on. I mean, I was the guy that didn't have to step on a Lego when he walked in the house. I just blew up over nothing. When my ex-girlfriend moved out, I had an empty house. She took the kids with her. She moved into an apartment building, and I started to drive my car home from work, put it in the parking lot, put it in my driveway, and I had my lights on timers in my house. So they'd go off at 10 o'clock. My car would be in the driveway. I'd walk back to work and work all night long. I wouldn't work. I'd actually just be there, staying away from people. I couldn't be around people anymore. The nightmares, because of the nightmares, I didn't want to sleep. The meth, they were delivering the meth right straight to my shop. I was buying it by the ounce, over a line an hour. 2014, I went over to my ex-girlfriend's apartment to talk to the kids, and the same thing happened. It happened every time I was around them. They didn't have to do anything. I just got mad. I took it out on them. I yelled at them, and I knew something was wrong with me. I figured I had a split personality. There was something that was eating me up so bad that I thought I was going to go off the handle and kill somebody or hurt somebody. I decided to go down to my shop. I went into my office, sat down at my desk, reached in the drawer, pulled out my .44 Magnum, put it to my head, and I pulled the trigger. And it clicked. If you know anything about a revolver, the hammer comes down, it has to hit something to make it click. I slammed that gun down on the desk, terrified of it, not understanding why that gun didn't go off. I chose it for a reason. It was my favorite gun, and I knew it was going to do the job. I literally climbed the desk behind me in my office. I was up on my desk against the wall, staring at that gun, wondering what was going on, why it didn't go off. I finally got down, and I reached for the gun. I unloaded it. And when I went to set it down on the desk, the cylinder wanted to close. And I had to put a pin in the cylinder so the cylinder wouldn't close. I was so scared that that gun was still going to go off, even when all 6 rounds were laying on the desk. Nothing was making sense. I sat down on my desk, and my computer was in front of me, my keyboard was in front of me, and I started typing on the keyboard on a Google search. I started typing in nightmares, flashbacks, anger, drugs, and I hit enter on a Google search, and PTSD lit the screen up. I've never been in the military. I thought PTSD was a military thing. I didn't know what PTSD even stood for, post-traumatic stress disorder. I did research on it, trying to figure out why I got PTSD, and I found it when I did that Google search. When I opened up the Mayo site, it showed all the symptoms. Every one of the symptoms I had, it was like looking in a mirror. I couldn't understand why somebody didn't warn me about PTSD. Like I said, I studied it, and I found out there was therapy, there was treatments, there was a way to get out of this. It's not a death sentence, it's not a lifetime sentence. I can get some help. I studied it all night, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, I went over to my ex-girlfriend's apartment and knocked on the door, and when she opened up the door, I stormed into the room. I was so excited that I had PTSD, and I wasn't going crazy. I didn't have a split personality. I had a name to what was going on in my life, the anger. It all made sense. It was things I've gone through. When I stormed into that room and started yelling, I was yelling, a passion on my face and everything that, I found out it was PTSD. My ex-girlfriend had my 2 sons behind her, backing them down backing them down the hallway in the apartment. And my sons were looking around her with fear in their eyes that I was there to hurt them. They thought I lost my mind. I left that apartment, went back down to the shop, and the gun was still laying there, and the rounds are still laying there. And that's when I noticed that none of the rounds had a dimple on the primers. And I was so confused. I just didn't know what was going on. I actually thought about loading that gun and putting it to my head and start clicking it till it went off, because this doesn't make sense. I thought it was a mistake that I was alive. Instead, I sat down at my desk, and I had collected some phone numbers over the years, and I started calling them. I called a suicide hotline 12 times, and nobody answered. I called 3 other phone numbers that my chief had given me 5 years prior, 3 phone numbers for firefighters that need to talk to somebody, need help. They were helplines, and all of them were disconnected, all 3 of them. I called a police officer friend. I asked him if he'd go over and talk to my ex-girlfriend, tell her what PTSD is, tell her I can get help, tell her I can pull out of this thing. He told me he was going to come get me, take me to the hospital. They were going to lock me up. And that's not the answer I wanted to hear. I wasn't going to be locked up when I just found out I had PTSD, and I found the answer to why I was acting the way I was acting. I hung the phone up after telling him that if the next 2 phone numbers don't work, I'll call him back. The next phone number was to a local crisis line, and it was for a gal that we were supposed to talk to. The first responders were supposed to talk to her, and she was going to help us. I called it, got a hold of her, told her I just tried to kill myself. I said, I think I got PTSD. I need some help. She made an appointment for a week and a half out. I made the appointment for a week and a half out, hung the phone up knowing I was going to be dead by sunset. There's no way I could make it a week and a half. I'd be lucky if I made it till sunset. The last phone number I got was texted to me by my assistant chief. And I'm not sure if I asked for it or asked for help or if he just seen it. I'm pretty sure he just sent it, but it was a Share to Load program, National Volunteer Fire Council, the Share to Load program, phone number. And I called it, and I wasn't expecting much. You know, with 17 phone calls earlier, none of them worked. This was my last call. And I was looking at that gun thinking this was it. When I called it, it rang twice, and they answered the phone. I told them I tried to kill myself. I need help. I begged them. And they said, Scott, we've got you. And it was like they held out their hands, and they had me. They were there. They talked me down from the place I was at. They told me they were going to be there with me, help me through it. We're going to get there together, and they were. They told me about something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And they helped me make the appointment. I had to call. I made the appointment in Fargo, North Dakota, which is about an hour from us. And the next morning, I went to start the process. And it was amazing. The first 2 times, we just talked about things, just like a counseling session. And then the 3rd time, about a week later, I went back, only this time, like I did it every hour on the hour, except this time I did 3 lines of meth in the parking lot because I knew what they were going to do. At least I thought they did. I thought I did. What they did was they did the light session type thing with me where they put vibrating pads on my legs, and they had a light bar up in front of me that went back and forth. And when we were talking, we thought it was a girlfriend or something that hurt me along the lines, and we were going to find out, who it was and work through it. Because I never had any emotions. I never loved anybody. I couldn't feel. I was just numb. And when we started the light session, and we started talking about my ex-girlfriends, and all of a sudden, it was like my mind went into the REM mode of sleep, and all hell busted loose. The nightmares came alive. The car accidents, I started to see them. I never talked about them. We didn't do debriefings. I never discussed the car accidents with anybody. I had no support at home to talk to anybody at home. Couldn't talk about it in the bars. We're told not to. Volunteer fire departments, we go home after putting the trucks away. We never talked to anybody. We never debriefed. The accidents came alive. I was seeing the faces, the cars. I was smelling the exhaust. I was smelling the antifreeze. It was reliving them. And it was talking my way through it. And it was amazing because as I was doing that, it felt almost like a weight was coming off me. And I was coming back alive. I started to feel again. And after about 3 sessions, or actually it was after about the 2nd session, I started seeing in color again. I couldn't see in color before. I could tell you what color something was, but it wasn't bright like I see the colors now. It was all shadowy and dark and gray, and it wasn't nice, and it was numb. When I started seeing colors, it was amazing because it was like I said, it was an hour drive home after these sessions, and I was starting to see things I'd never seen for years, cars, houses I didn't even know were there that were there for 20 years. In fact, after about 6 sessions, I was feeling so good that when I went in and the therapist was there and he was trying to dig out more, trying to find out what more was in there, in my head that was holding back. And it was amazing because I couldn't stop smiling. He said that he's never had somebody come in and do therapy, and he's never had somebody make him feel better after the therapy than before I went in there. Like I said, I couldn't stop smiling. I was cracking jokes, and it just felt like it was free again. The peace that came over me was amazing. I went home after my last session, and I was in my driveway, and my sons were with me in the car. And when I was 18 years old, I used to jump picnic tables over in the city park across from where we lived, and I felt so good. At 46 years old, I told my sons to watch this. Famous last words. I went and tried to jump the picnic table, and I almost made it. Came down pretty bad. Didn't twist my ankle, but it hurt. And I don't know how I didn't break my leg. I hobbled back, and And my sons are right there to say, hey, Dad, that was pretty awesome. You want to do it again? My neighbors were out in the yard. They thought I lost my mind again. 2 weeks later, I stretched out, and I jumped that picnic table at 46 years old. That's how good I felt. And it wasn't a single neighbor out in the yard. My kids weren't around. There wasn't even a dog to see me jump it. But I'm fine with that because I know I did it, and I'm not going to try it again. I'll call it good. This business is dangerous. We see things that normal people are not, we're not supposed to see this stuff. I mean, we're not built for this. Like I said before, we didn't do any debriefings. I held it all in my head. I was this tough guy. I was a training officer. I was a rescue captain. I was teaching all these guys how to do auto extrication and ice water rescues. They looked at me, they had me up on a pedestal, and they looked at me like I was the tough guy. Man, Scott's got this together. I was a mess, addicted to meth. When I did those 3 lines right before I went into that light session of EMDR, that's the last 3 lines of meth I've done. My son, in December of 2014, when we were in Fargo Christmas shopping, he was 13 years old, and he was sitting beside me, and we were taking a corner, and I'll never forget it, because I looked over at him and told him, I said, I'm so glad that that gun didn't go off. And he looked at me and said, Dad, the gun did go off. It killed the bad dad. And I realized I haven't been angry, I haven't had a nightmare, and I haven't done meth since August of 2014. And before that, I was doing a line of meth an hour. I couldn't live without it. The nightmares were every time I closed my eyes. I seen my kids falling out of the sky on fire, landing in the water, still burning. And I couldn't help them because I was paralyzed. The jaws of life wouldn't work. I couldn't get to them. Every time I closed my eyes, I was having nightmares like that. And now I have dreams. I can sleep. I sleep awesome, maybe too good. It just feels it's so incredible what's happened now. I mean, I'm in Maryland, Ocean City, Maryland. And when I speak, I don't even get nervous. I couldn't even speak in front of my own fire department. I mean, I'd have to have like a huddle. I couldn't have them out in the room, it'd be kind of a half-ass huddle. And now I stand in front of hundreds and hundreds of firefighters. I was in New York, for cripe's sakes, a few days ago talking to New York firefighters about feelings. Wow. And I didn't get shot or anything. Sorry, Mike. But yeah, it's just so important for us to reach out. The warning signs are there a lot of the time. We've got to watch and train, educate each other. There was just a couple suicides this last week, firefighter suicides. There's more firefighters taking their own lives than dying of line of duty deaths. And yet we don't educate. We don't train about mental health, suicide, and PTSD. That's like sending our guys into a house fire without having an air pack on. We can't do that anymore. How much time do I have? Am I good? I guess I just want you guys to take care of each other and watch out. Listen to your spouses when they say, you're changing. Listen, they're going to see it first. It's a dangerous business, and we got to watch out for each other. I think we got a class coming up later today too.
2:45.
2:45. If anybody wants to come, we're going to be talking a lot more in depth on it. I'll be speaking a little bit more. But thanks for having me. I love the Maryland tan.
Thanks, Scott. Just a quick idea of what's available. As you can understand what Scott just mentioned, anytime you have a problem with behavioral health of any type, substance abuse, anxiety, depression, give us a call. We'll do the best we can to help you out. Scott mentioned, you know, the New York firefighters. When he went up to New York, he said, what's the deal with this, with the crosswalks in New York? He said, you know, anywhere else in the country, I'd step out in a crosswalk and cars slow down. I said, in New York, you step in a crosswalk, you're nothing but a target, you know. So again, I want to thank Scott for his courage and give it back to the president.
Yes, I'm very thankful for you preaching your story. I can't say enough about it. And for being here today, you guys get away with a 125th anniversary convention mug. Also, I present you with my challenge coin. It's actually a joint coin, both sides, you know, myself and also the ladies president, Barbara Sue Nelson. The least I could do. Thank you. Hang on a second, I get your notes. Who do we have up next? And now introduce our State Fire Marshal, Mr. Brian Geraci.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well, having a good time. Great opening ceremony today, wasn't it? Man, it was really nice. They've done a really nice job for the 125th anniversary. So I want to bring you greetings from Governor Larry Hogan and Lieutenant Governor Boyd K. Rutherford and Colonel William Palazzi, who was here today, this morning. I hope everybody got to see the superintendent up here. It's great for him to come down. He's very supportive of our office and all that we do. And we have a great relationship with him and the senior staff within the state police. So it's great to have the colonel come down and address you all this morning, so we were very happy about that. So on behalf of the entire staff of the Office of State and Fire Marshal, I want to congratulate your association presidents Mike Davis and Barbara Sue Nelson. Your terms in office have been extremely productive, and your service to your members is one your entire association should be very proud of. In just a short while, I'll be reviewing the state's fire statistics for last year. But please know that the fire statistics cannot capture the pain or the devastation that ensues or the thoughts of the survivors as they watch in horror as flames engulf their home, knowing that no one else has escaped. For those of you who saw the movie Manchester by the Sea, you saw the very real, painful, and long-term effect fire can have on an individual, a family, and a community, because behind every fire statistic is a story of a family, those who are taken and those who are left behind. But what the movie failed to show was the danger of complacency towards fire and how we need to change this behavior. This continues to be our greatest challenge that we face in trying to prevent that 911 call. We must place more emphasis on public education and community risk reduction to overcome the complacency within all our communities across the state and change those unsafe behaviors. So I'm asking all of you today to help me accomplish that. It's my distinct privilege to present to you the report of the Office of State Fire Marshal. As you know, the Maryland Fire Incident Reporting System is an extremely valuable tool for us to collect valuable resources and data. This evaluation. Reporting again, thanks to everybody here, is at 100% last year, so we're happy that all the departments have stepped up and continue to get those reports in on time so we can capture the data so we're able to report that to you each year. So an example of some of the data compiled last year in 2016, we had a total of 17,390 fires reported. Out of those, 1,897 were structure fires. We had 149 civilian fire injuries were reported, which is a 22% decrease in the number of reported injuries in 2015. Unfortunately, we had 441 fire service injuries, which is a 60% increase over the 275 injuries reported in 2015. Obviously, a statistic that we need to really look at and focus on in the coming years to bring that number down. I don't know why that number's gotten so high, and we have a 60% increase over 1 year, but we really need to look at that, and be speaking out to some of the fire chiefs here later about that. Unfortunately, we had three firefighter line of duty deaths occurred in 2016, one as a result of gunshot wounds, occupational cancer, and the result of a fall during a fire department activity. The total estimated property damage for fire loss last year in the state was $142,607,000. In 2016, the state of Maryland saw the number of fire deaths increase by 7.9% when compared to 2015. The total number of fire deaths for 2016 was 68, as indicated above, represented an increase in the 63 fire deaths that we suffered in 2015. 12 fatal residential structure fires occurred where smoke alarms were known to have functioned at the time of the incident. However, we still lost 12 lives in those fires. It should be noted that last year, though, we had over 100 individuals that were saved by the activation of residential sprinklers, and over 200 folks saved due to the activation of smoke alarms. So again, I talk about those failures against their many successes, and those are great success stories there, with those lives saved by residential sprinklers and smoke alarms. During 2016, residential fire fatalities accounted for 77% of all fire fatalities. 16% of the victims in residential fatal fires involved adults aged 70 and older. This is a slight decrease when compared to 2015, when we had 13 victims perish at that same age range. 3 fatal fires occurred with victims aged 90 or older in 2016, and 12 victims under the age of 18 died in 8 fires in 2016, accounting for 18% of the fire deaths. Baltimore City reported 16 fire deaths in 2016, which represented almost 11% decrease to the 18 fire deaths reported in 2015. And unfortunately, I can tell you right now, Baltimore City is at 19. And we're not even 6 months into the year yet. They're already at 19 fire deaths in Baltimore City. Montgomery County experienced 6 fire deaths compared to 2 in 2015. Prince George's County reported 11 fire deaths in 2016 as compared to 6 fire deaths in 2015. Additionally, Baltimore County experienced 6 fire deaths, and Cecil, Charles, Hartford, Somerset County experienced 3 deaths. Allegheny, Carroll, Frederick, and Wycomico had 2 fire deaths. And Caroline, Dorchester, Garrett, Howard, Queen Anne's, and Washington counties had 1 fire death each. Sadly, the 5-year average for fire deaths in Maryland is 64 per year. Although better than in 1975 to 1988, when the fire deaths remained over 100 each year, we still have a lot of work to do in our efforts to reach 0 fire deaths. In comparison to previous years, 2016 showed a decrease in the total number of multiple fatality fires, which was 7 fires, or 12.5% of the 56 total fires for last year. During 2015, the percentage of multi-fatality fires was at 18.4% of the total fires for that year, and at 12.7% for the total fires for the year in 2014. The months of January, August, October, and December 2016 resulted in 1 multi-fatality fire for each of the 4 months. Even though only 1 multiple fatality fire was reported in January and August, it was the 2 months that claimed the most multiple deaths in one incident. Both months each claimed 4 lives in those 2 separate incidents. In 2016, similar to multi-fires, the number of multi-deaths and fatal fires slightly decreased in comparison to the prior year of 19 deaths, or 27.9% of the 68 fire deaths reported last year. Multiple deaths and fatal fires in 2015 recorded 23 deaths, or 36.5%. Of the 63 total deaths, and in 2014 were recorded at 16 deaths, 25% of the total 64 fires. 26 employees of the Office of the State Fire Marshal and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms National Response Team assisted at Montgomery County Fire and Rescue with its investigation of the 3-story apartment explosion fire in Silver Spring that killed 5 adults and 2 children. The National Transportation Safety Board continues to follow up in its investigation for the gas piping that is going into the building and to the meter. Washington Gas also had private investigators on the scene to secure gas meters, piping, and other equipment for analysis. An eyewitness reported an odor of gas right before the explosion, which continues to be the focus of the investigation. As we've all known, and I've spoken about it before, and we continue to speak about it, hoarding can prevent hazards, which can result in catastrophic fire-related events that jeopardize the safety of all concerned, including but not limited to the occupants, but also to you, emergency responders. The Office of the State Fire Marshal continues to educate the public regarding the dangers of hoarding. And last year we had 7 deaths resulted from 7 hoarding-related fires, which is almost 13% of the total fires reported for the entire year, representing an increase in comparison to the previous years. The following is a report summarizing the fire-related deaths that were complicated by conditions of hoarding in the reporting year of 2016. An undetermined dwelling fire claimed the life of a 67-year-old male victim who became entrapped in his home after it collapsed. Firefighters on the scene were initially able to locate the 67-year-old victim in a second-floor bedroom, but however, due to rapidly degrading conditions, rescuers were forced to evacuate the burning structure prior to extricating the victim from the home. A 63-year-old female was rescued by first responders subsequent to calling 911 and reporting a fire inside her townhome. The victim was transported to a local medical center and then transferred to a burn center where she later succumbed to her injuries during treatment. The fire cause remains undetermined, but smoking while on home oxygen is suspected. An undetermined fire in a two-story townhome resulted in the demise of a 66-year-old female. The victim's escape may have been hampered by her physical disability as she used the assistance of a walker. A firefighter was treated and released as a result of non-life-threatening injuries sustained while battling the blaze. A 63-year-old female victim body was located in the garage area of her single-family dwelling, but only after the blaze had been completely extinguished. Firefighters made multiple attempts to search the home, however, the unsafe conditions prevented a rescue. A firefighter was treated and released for non-life-threatening injuries, and the cause of the fire remains undetermined. An incendiary fire set in a residential dwelling resulted in the death of a 42-year-old male who committed suicide. And a 74-year-old female was rescued by firefighters from a burning home and was transferred to a burn center. Unfortunately, the 74-year-old victim succumbed to her injuries a few days later. And an undetermined dwelling fire resulted in the demise of a 73-year-old male who was found by firefighters in the kitchen of the home and was confirmed deceased on the scene. The Office of State Fire Marshal extends its congratulations to each fire department and local jurisdiction to suffer no fire deaths or experience decreases in the number of deaths last year. 5 counties experienced no fire fatalities. These include Calvert, Kent, St. Mary's, Talbot, and Worcester. As always, the Office of State Fire Marshal followed the 2017 session of the Maryland General Assembly. The MSA is to be commended for their leadership, diligence, and continued support in working with the Office of State Fire Marshal and other members of the Maryland Fire Service. The Maryland State Firemen's Association Legislative Committee Chairman Steve Cox and his entire committee continue to be vigilant on key issues, share information on important topics, and communicate with key legislators. I can tell you this is a great partnership that we have with the Legislative Committee. We work very closely with them in Annapolis all throughout the year, and they do a tremendous job for your association. So when you see Steve or Richard or one of those folks on that committee, you should thank them, because they do a tremendous job for you all in getting the things that you need here in the state. The defeat of House Bill 19 in 2016 was again a tremendous effort, alluding to the successes for Marylanders and retaining the requirement for installation of residential sprinklers in all new homes. The MSFA Fire Sprinkler Committee is also to be commended for their efforts in performing live side-by-side burn demonstrations before elected officials, the public, and members of the fire service. As a state fire marshal, I wholeheartedly appreciate the partnerships our agencies share with local state governments as well as private industry. These partnerships help us secure resources, disseminate information, and lastly, be more effective at accomplishing the task in the pursuit of fire and life safety. I think you saw that this morning when PEPCO came out and presented Montgomery and Prince George's County with those smoke alarms. Again, they had that partnership for many, many years. So over the past 15 years, we've had a public-private partnership with PEPCO and Marva Power, and has enabled the distribution of well over 23,850 smoke alarms. Statewide initiatives advocating the installation, maintenance, and testing of smoke alarms, coupled with developing and practicing home fire escape plans, continues to help communities reduce fire deaths and injuries. As a reminder, please take part in the community risk reduction weekends offered each year for the fire departments throughout the state to enter their respective communities and offer installations of smoke alarms and provide fire and life safety information. The next statewide community risk reduction weekend is scheduled for October 21st and 22nd, and I'm asking that all Maryland fire departments use this opportunity to go out and check and install life-saving smoke alarms in their homes of the citizens they serve and have sworn to protect from the effects of fires. Ladies and gentlemen, this continues to be an outstanding program. It is saving lives. As you saw last year, over 200 folks were saved with smoke alarm activations. So I encourage all the departments to take advantage of that weekend and go out and do that. Install smoke alarms and talk to your folks in your community. The Mid-Atlantic Life Safety Conference celebrated its 57th year this year, anniversary on September 27, 2016. The theme last year was Campaign for Prevention. Originally billed as the Governor's Fire Prevention Conference, began in August of 1959, when then Governor Tawes saw the need for a statewide conference on fire prevention. 57 years later, the Mid-Atlantic Life Safety Conference remains one of the foremost conferences of its kind in the nation. The conference was well attended by over 200 participants. During that conference, Jim Resnick of the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service received the Public Fire Safety Educator of the Year Award. He has shown a true dedication to public fire safety education and is an asset to both his department and the citizens of Maryland. Mark your calendars for Tuesday, September 26, 2017, for yet another well-prepared conference. Please go to the fascom.org website and fill out your application to attend this well-rounded conference designed for you and your peers. And just a little side story about Chief Resnick, who's a retired battalion chief out of Montgomery County. Both his aunt and uncle were killed in the Coconut Grove fire in Boston. So he has a passion. His father was supposed to meet his brother there that night and for some reason didn't go. So he has a reason for what he does and what he does very well, and working with the senior population in Montgomery County. He does an outstanding job. But I thought I'd share that story with you. The Office of State Fire Marshal participated in the Maryland Association of Realtors Conference in Ocean City last year with a booth and continuing education accredited workshop on smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, and residential fire sprinklers. 50 participants attended, and there was great feedback by the attendees. The Maryland Realtors were opponents to residential sprinklers, but the workshop provided a good opportunity to educate them on these life-saving devices. On Saturday, March 19th, the Public Fire Life Safety Educator Seminar titled Practical Tips for Fire and Life Safety Programs was held at the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute in College Park. Over 60 motivated personnel attended, and the outstanding event where provided timely and topical information. And I can tell you this year was even a bigger turnout. So we're looking forward to even more folks next year to come to that one-day event, which really provides great information. If you're out there in the community and doing public fire safety education, please plan on being there next year in March. During the past year, the Office of State Fire Marshal experienced a few staffing changes. Ken Bush was promoted to the Chief Fire Protection Engineer. Deputy State Fire Marshal Brad Childress and John Grothy graduated from the Southern Maryland Police Academy. And Senior Deputy State Fire Marshals John Nelson and K-9 Zorro and Melissa Decker and K-9 Sky completed their training in Front Royal with ATF K-9 Accelerated Detection Program. With the addition of the two K-9s, Melissa's dog is new, and John got a second dog because Charlie retired. But that brings us now to 4 across the state, Accelerated Detection K-9. So we have a great resource in our K-9 program. They do an outstanding job. Steve Hatchett's here. He oversees the K-9 program. He does a great job with that, and we do really appreciate all that they do for us. Additionally, Fire Safety Inspectors Michael Matthews, Edward Geiselhart, and Pamela Trainer joined our ranks and are effectively working to save lives throughout the state. Please join us in supporting their successes as they serve the citizens of Maryland. Special Assistant State Fire Marshal Terry Gerhardt of the Western Regional Office of the State Fire Marshal received the Community Partnership Award from Washington County Department of Social Services for the high-quality fire and life safety education he provides to foster care parents. And Deputy State Fire Marshal Carl Whitmer, out of our Western Regional Officers, also received a life-saving award from Maryland State Police for his assistance in providing CPR to a cardiac patient at the Hagerstown MVA. Bomb Detection K-9 CC retired after serving 9 great years alongside Master Deputy State Fire Marshal Steve Hatchett as they worked out of the bomb squad office together. We sincerely appreciate CC's work to ensure the safety of all Marylanders and communities throughout the United States. Steve and CC traveled a lot of different places, a lot of different venues to help FBI and ATF with their bomb detection capabilities, and we were great to have her here. She still comes to the office to keep everybody company, but she did a great job. The Office of State Fire Marshal staff members performed at a very high level in 2016. The Office of the State Fire Marshal conducted over 1,100 investigations, of which 709 of those were fire-related, and completed 12,335 fire and life safety inspections. A total of 92 criminal cases were closed by arrest, with 134 individuals being arrested. The agency-wide arson case closure was 26%, which is well above the national average of 18%. This level of performance is outstanding in light of the increased training and fire life safety education assignments that the investigators have. The Office of State Fire Marshal Fire Protection Engineers reviewed 1,687 construction and fire protection system plans, and the dedication of our personnel is evidenced by these numbers. It's through an agency-wide commitment to fire and life safety that we work to continue for the citizens with Maryland Fire Service to accomplish the mission of protecting life and property. In light of the increase in injuries to our firefighters across the state, I would ask that you continue to embrace all of the Firefighter 16 life safety initiatives that were developed several years ago. I'm asking each of you to place more emphasis on fire and injury prevention and code enforcement and fire sprinklers. We need to continue to take every opportunity to prevent the 911 call and to get the fire safety message out into our communities. Excuse me. Take time now and when you get back home from the convention to network with departments that have a proven and effective fire prevention program and get those fire and injury prevention messages excuse me, out into your community each and every day. Take any and all opportunities to interact with the public, not just during Fire Prevention Week in October. When you do have a fire incident, make it a point to get back in that area as soon as possible and to talk to people that were impacted by the event. Make sure your personnel are checking to see if smoke alarms are present on each and every response to homes within your community. It's very important. It just takes a small amount of time once you're out there on an incident to look and make sure they have smoke alarms in place. You don't need to take care of it right then during the emergency, but obviously get back to that home if they don't have that and make sure they have working smoke alarms. Promote the 10-year sealed battery smoke alarms, escape plans, get out, stay out, and to close the doors while sleeping and when evacuating during an active fire incident and immediately calling 911. A simple message. Smoke alarms, escape plans, get out, stay out, close the doors, evacuate, and call 911. We always see a breakdown in one of those factors. Whether the smoke alarms aren't working, they fail to have an escape plan, they get out and for some reason they go back inside, the doors aren't closed. We have a tremendous campaign that we're gearing up with the Fire and Life Safety Committee here with MSFA to close the door. And we're going to be kicking that off here very shortly. Excuse me. Also, make plans to work with neighboring departments and the American Red Cross to establish teams to install smoke alarms in homes located in community and conduct fire safety reviews. Just this year, I know up in Hartford County, they partnered with the American Red Cross, and in one day, they installed over 190 smoke alarms. So, great efforts there. Great efforts that they're doing up there. And everywhere. But the Red Cross is a great resource because they'll come out, they'll provide some manpower, they'll provide smoke alarms, and help you all get out into your communities. In January of 2018, next year, the 10-year sealed battery smoke alarms will be required as a replacement for all battery-only powered smoke alarms. No one will be able to put in a 9-volt battery smoke alarm beginning January 1st of next year. They have to be a 10-year sealed battery smoke alarm. Continue to focus on those populations that continue to be impacted by fire, the very young, our elderly, and those who have disabilities, all of which are factors that prevent a timely escape from fire. Please watch in the coming months as we shall introduce the Get Alarmed Maryland program, a campaign in an effort to provide working smoke alarms throughout the state in a concentrated effort to save lives. I'm really excited about this program that's coming along. We're going to be targeting individual specific areas. We're going to be looking at demographics. We're going to start mapping where we're installing smoke alarms and really getting out into those communities that really need the help the most. So be looking for that because we're going to need everybody's help and input in that. And we're looking for you. When you install a smoke alarm, we're going to have a simple app for your cell phone. You can just go right into that, punch in the location, and then automatically goes to a mapping system that we'll have at our office to let us know where the smoke alarms are. Get out to schools, daycare centers, senior centers, county fairs, Christmas tree lots, and other locations where folks in your community will be located. Do not wait for them to call you. Reach out to them and ask to visit and share the information and knowledge you have on preventing fires and injuries. It takes a very little time, but the information you share will go a long way in the end in saving lives. Also, something new for us this year is the Office of the State Fire Marshal blog site is up and running. for your use. The site contains news and information. Fatality and burn injury reports can now be completed securely online. We don't have to do the papers anymore. Local jurisdictions can also share smoke alarm saves and fire alarm saves. If you have a save from a smoke alarm or sprinkler system, and my folks aren't there, and the local fire marshals aren't there, just please go to our blog site and enter that information. It's very short, asks very few questions, but again, we can start tracking that information. As you saw from earlier, we had so many saves last year, and that's where we're getting the information from. So it gives me great pleasure now. I'd like to introduce our new Chief Deputy State Fire Marshal, Gregory Durr, as he will announce the Regional Deputy State Fire Marshals of the Year. Greg?
Thank you, Fire Marshal Gracie. I come to the Fire Marshal's office from Howard County Police, where I retired after 20 years of service. During that time, I spent the bulk of my career in the fire investigation section. I'm finally getting a glimpse of what it would have been like if I would have scored 2 more points higher on that test 20 years ago. And it also appears that the fire engines sit a little bit higher here than the police cars, because you couldn't see me if we didn't put something underneath me, so that was a little technical difficulty we have. I look forward to working with each of you this year and in the future to make Maryland a safer place. Ladies and gentlemen, I would ask you now to join me in honoring our Regional Deputy State Fire Marshal of the Year for 2016. Deputy State Fire Marshals Derek Chapman, Northeast Region. Deputy State Fire Marshal Christopher Fenzel, Upper Eastern Shore Region. Deputy State Fire Marshals Thomas Haar, Lower Eastern Shore Region. Deputy State Fire Marshal John Nelson, Southern Region. Deputy State Fire Marshal Matthew Wren from our bomb squad. Each of these individuals represents their peers with great devotion and distinction. Each has gone above and beyond the call of duty. They come to work every day looking forward to the challenge of making Maryland a safer place to live, work, play, and raise a family. It is important to note that each has risen to this level with the strong support of their supervision, the administration staff, and their fellow fire safety inspectors, fire protection engineers, and Deputy State Fire Marshals. As always, the job of the Deputy State Fire Marshal of the Year Selection Committee is extremely difficult, and this year was definitely no exception. I want to thank Chief McMahon for chairing this committee and all the Deputy State Fire Marshals that served on this committee. To each of you, I sincerely thank you for your service and devotion. Let's give them a hand. I now have the great pleasure of introducing to you the 2016 James C. Robertson Deputy State Fire Marshal of the Year. During 2016, this Deputy State Fire Marshal excelled in the responsibilities involving the fire marshal profession. This deputy established himself as a thorough professional with a great deal of confidence in their ability. This deputy has consistently demonstrated that he is a self-motivated and reliable employee who is ready to offer support to his peers and always represents the office of the State Fire Marshal in a positive manner. This deputy was cited for their many achievements in 2016, such as conducting an average of 5.6 fire safety inspections and 2.25 fire investigations per month. He established a 50% arson closure rate when the national average is only 19. He is credited with providing critical assistance in helping to close multiple additional cases being investigated by his peers. One such case involved an investigation of an occupied 3-story apartment building in 2012, where 22 occupants had to escape the raging flames through windows as the interior egress was blocked by heat, smoke, and flames. Several people sustained several injuries due to jumping out of the second and third story window. New information was developed in 2016, and upon reopening the 4-year-old case, an arrest and conviction was accomplished as the suspect pleaded guilty to first-degree arson and 9 counts of first-degree assault and was sentenced to 255 years imprisonment with all but 40 years suspended. This highly respected investigator has excelled in each and every aspect of his career and is a model employee for our agency. It is my honor to present the James C. Robertson Award recognizing the Deputy State Fire Marshal of the Year for 2016 to Master Deputy State Fire Marshal Thomas Haar. Congratulations.
You good?
Thank you.
Yeah. So in closing, I just want to thank all my staff for being here. A lot of the staff is here today. I appreciate them coming out, as always, to help recognize the Deputy State Fire Marshal of the Year. It's very well deserved today by Tommy. He did a great job last year. I also want to say, in closing, the staff members will continue to perform their duties in public safety mission with pride. And with challenges come more opportunities. We all are always seeking potential opportunities to better perform our mission. And with your support and continually move both the agency and, more importantly, the Maryland Fire Service forward. As an organization, the entire staff of the Office of State Fire Marshal has a clear picture of its mission. Office of State Fire Marshal staff members look forward to working closely with MSFA President Mark Bilger and LA MSFA President Vivian Boyd and their leadership teams for this upcoming year. We wish them great success and know they will achieve their goals established during their terms of office. Again, I must ask you to remember there are real people behind the statistics. And that we need to work harder and smarter this year and in the future to eliminate fire deaths and injuries within our state. Please make fire and injury prevention your most important service that your department provides and reinforce that message with your members each and every day. Thank you for all your support, dedication, and devotion in keeping Maryland Fire safe. Enjoy the rest of the convention, and please have a safe trip home after this 125th convention. I'd like to present to President Davis in appreciation of the 125th anniversary, the Fire Marshal Encomium, recognizing the association and your accomplishments over the last 125 years. I appreciate everything you've done for us this year, Mike, and the great partnership that we have with MSFA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. In return, I have a 125th anniversary mug and a bag and everything for you as well. And can't help but saying, it's pretty much like a big family. The fire marshal's office, we all get along together, and like a regular good old family, and it's much appreciated. We do whatever we can for each other, and I hope we continue a long-lasting service that way. And thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Let's go here. There's one picture. Should. Exchange the mug. The mug's a Now I'd like to introduce Ms. Pat Gaynor, the co-acting director of MIMS.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pat Gaynor. I am the acting co-executive director at MIMS, along with Dr. Alcorta, who is not here today. He was here over the weekend, but he had to head back to the office today. I'm happy to be here on behalf of MIMS and the State EMS Board, and we're honored to be here, particularly honored to be here to help celebrate the 125th anniversary. Over the past year, we have worked with President Mike Davis, First Vice President Mark Bilger, and Second Vice President Rick Blair, and we thank them for their help over the year, and we look forward to working with the new officers after the election tomorrow. I also want to take a moment to recognize MSFA members who work closely with MIMS and the EMS Board. EMS Board member and past President Fred Cross, former EMS Board member, past President and current MIMS Ombudsman Phil Herlock, and SEMSAC members Eric Smothers and Linda Dusa. All of these individuals help the board and MIMS deal with the many issues that come up over the years, and we thank them for their help. There's a little bit of trouble with the slides, so let me see if I can get this going. Oh, whoops, okay, it's working. I'm going to just take a few minutes to talk about what we've been doing over the past year, and then to give a little preview of some of the issues we see as hot issues for the next upcoming year, 17 to 18. First off, I want to talk a little bit about the National Registry testing. You all will recall that Maryland became a National Registry testing state for basic life supporters in 2014. Now, we did not get off to a very good start. Our initial test results were below the national average. There were a lot of associated issues with the testing. There were not enough sites for student candidates to go test for the National Registry. Some students felt unprepared and felt not ready to take the test. And there were confusion among Maryland protocol requirements and what students might be tested for on the National Registry test. So what happened was that the EMS board put together a committee on National Registry testing to look at what the issues were, get everything out on the table, and work through the problems one by one. The committee was made up of EMS board members. Fred Cross served on that committee, as well as Don DeVries, the chairman, and other board members. And the Maryland State Firemen's Association was represented on the committee, and Johnny Roth in particular took a very active role in trying to address some of the problems. Chief Richard Brooks was also on the committee and was very helpful in working through all the issues. We had folks from MIFRE, from the other educational programs, and then MIMS was represented as well. What the committee did was they conducted an in-depth review of the results from the first year of National Registry testing for EMRs and EMTs. They looked at ways to improve the pass rates. They got all the problems out on the table, and we had some very detailed and contentious discussions about how to address the issues. The group figured out ways to address the problem and to mitigate some of the issues we were having, and they identified changes and made recommendations. They held meetings in 2015 and 2016, and can you all hear me? Is this better?
Yep, there you go.
Some of the actions that the board took, or not the board, the EMS committee, the board committee on National Registry Testing, some of the actions that they took were they directed MIMS to work with National Registry folks to increase the number of test sites in the state, and the number of test sites went from 8 to 16. We were able to increase flexibility in test scheduling, so individuals could go test at the times that they wanted to, but also groups of students could go test together, which was what the practice had been like in the past. The group directed MIMS to focus on students who were having difficulty passing the National Registry test, and we worked with Howard County to develop a National Registry test prep program that was disseminated and held throughout the states to help the students who felt they weren't quite ready to take the National Registry test get ready to take the test. The educational programs modified their courses, and MIFRI in particular did some wonderful work to focus more resources on changes in the classroom so the students could be better prepared. We also put a lot of state resources into some of these improvements. MIMS pays for at that time paid for the first test for EMTs and EMRs. We now pay for the first and second. But you'll see up on the slide shows the cost that we have paid to date. Most of the money is going to pay for the National Registry exam. We pay for My Brady labs for students who have completed the MIFRI course and need additional help. We also pay some group testing fees. You can see the cost arrayed below. The grand total right now is about $275,000 so far since October 14th, and we will continue to pay for the first and second National Registry tests moving forward. So the big question is, how well are we doing? All those resources, all that energy put into trying to rectify this problem, how well are we doing? Oh, shoot. I skipped it. Could somebody back up the slide just to the one? There it is. These are the results for the National Registry testing for BLS providers. You'll see on the left-hand side, it shows the initial pass rates. These were for students coming out of the first classes that were tested by National Registry. The EMT pass rate was 56% and the EMR pass rate was 51%. The intervention took place after all the work everybody did after coming together and identifying the problems. Our current pass rates, as of Friday, June 15th, our EMTs are 80% pass rate and EMRs are 83% pass rate. So we have, since this work, we have remained above the national average. And I just want to thank the members of the MSFA and the educational programs and the EMS board. Everybody came together and worked so hard to address this problem. It put Maryland back where we should be as a leader in the nation. Moving on to what we have been working on in addition to testing. There we go. We've put a lot of energy this last year into the heroin and opioid crisis. In 2016, nearly 2,100 people died in Maryland from overdoses, a 66% increase from the year before. And it is a huge problem in Maryland, and it's a huge problem for EMS responding to these overdoses. The governor declared a state of emergency in January 2017, and he created an opioid operating command center to coordinate resources with federal, local, and state agencies, and Clay Stamp is heading that effort up. We've seen, and you all have seen, I'm certain, an increase in EMS overdose responses and increased use of naloxone. Recently, we have worked with Clay and his folks to add some additional questions to the eMeds patient care reporting form. that when EMS providers come upon an overdose victim, they are asked to complete additional questions. And these questions are geared to help us understand if bystanders are providing naloxone. These questions just went into effect a few weeks ago, and I would ask all EMS providers to make sure that they don't skip answering those questions on the EMED form. It's very important we get the information, we plug it back into Clay's group, and they can figure out ways to get more resources out in the community to address the problem. We also have been working with Clay and his group on an information card. For some reason I went back to the beginning. Could somebody see if you can get up the crisis hotline card, please? One more, right there. Okay, thank you. We're in the process of distributing cards out to the jurisdictions for EMS providers to have on the ambulance that they can leave when they come upon an overdose victim. A lot of times victims don't want to get into the ambulance after they have been revived with the naloxone. They want to go about their business and continue on. So what we've done is we've worked with Clay's group to develop a card. On one side of the card is the hotline to call for information on opioid overdose. And on the other side, let's see if I can get this to go. There. It's information for the patient, the family, the friends, about what to do, how to treat an opioid overdose. Again, I think we've printed something like 10,000 of these cards, and we're distributing them out to the jurisdictions. If you have not gotten them on your ambulances, please contact our regional administrators or stop by our desk, the licensing desk down on the first floor, and we'll see if we can get you some. Just real briefly, I want to move to the next slide, which isn't happening. Could somebody advance the slides, please? I want to talk real briefly about the statewide communication system upgrade. We began an upgrade to the statewide system, including SysCom and the EMRC back in 2010. We spent the last couple years planning that out, soliciting monies, making sure we have money in the state budget. We've completed the renovation for SysCom and the EMRC. We are now in the process of moving on to the upgrade of the rest of the state from analog to digital. We received proposals. We received bid proposals in June. We're evaluating those proposals, and we will hopefully have a contract awarded in October. Work on the upgrade, statewide upgrade, will begin then, and it will last about 18 months. I want to take a minute to talk about the transition to electronic licensure, and okay, great. Okay. During the past year, we have transitioned from paper processing of licensing and certification changes and applications to electronic. We purchased a product from ImageTrend. We've been implementing it. We still accept everything in paper, but we're encouraging folks to go electronic. It's the way of the future. There are a lot of electronic functions that are now available. Folks can just get online and complete certain functions that in the past they would have to file papers for. If we could have the next slide. Some of the functions that folks are now able to do, they can file for their initial and renewal applications, change of address, extension requests, card replacement, that sort of thing. We're fine-tuning additional functions, and hopefully they'll be rolled out within the next year. You can access the system, I don't know if you can see this, but it's www.mims.org or www.mimslicense.com. We've used the new system for the renewal cycle, the April 30th ALS renewal cycle. We're currently using it for the BLS renewal cycle. We're going to continue using it and expanding use. There have been some bumps in the road along the way, and we are convening a group in July from all the jurisdictions, representatives from all the jurisdictions, to come together, identify problems that need to be addressed, and develop consensus on how we can make improvements so the applications that we're using in the office can be better used out in the jurisdictions and for educational programs purposes. Now let me just turn real quickly to hot issues for 2017 and 18. Certainly the heroin and opioid overdose crisis is going to continue, unfortunately. We've seen some changes in the law this last year that are trying to get naloxone out into the community. You don't have to have training anymore if you're just a regular citizen, if you're not a provider, to get naloxone from the pharmacy. They're trying to get it out to families who have family members who are involved with heroin and opioids. We see there will be continued work in there. We're going to be working hard to improve the licensure system with input from the jurisdictions and the educational programs. Ambulance safety continues to be a focus for us. And let me just mention that Bill and Linda Dusa have done some great work with our ambulance safety task force, because one ambulance crash is one too many, and we want to make sure our patients and our providers get to and from the hospital safely. We're working on our communications upgrade, certainly. And then I just want to mention some other developments in the health policy area that will affect EMS. First of all is freestanding medical facilities. The legislature passed a law a few years ago that allows hospitals an acute care hospital to downgrade essentially from an acute care hospital to a freestanding emergency facility without a certificate of need. Of course, when that happens, the inpatient beds that the emergency patient would have moved into have gone away, and the patient needing that kind of care needs to be transported on. We were concerned about this change because we think it will affect emergency patients and EMS as well, making it perhaps EMS providers have to travel longer distance to go to hospitals with inpatient beds, or EMS providers having to make transfers from freestanding to hospitals. We're working on that issue now. We had thought by now we would have had one hospital make that change. It hasn't yet happened. It should be happening sometime this year, and we anticipate others will follow. We're also working on mobile integrated health. We have a number of jurisdictions in Maryland who are doing some great work in mobile integrated health. Queen Anne's County led the way. They have a project that's probably maybe 18 months in operation now, and they're getting some great results. It's targeted at frequent flyers, patients who call 911 a lot, and trying to get them the services they need so they don't have to call 911. Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Charles County, and Frederick County. I hear Howard County is also working on developing these programs. It's a new opportunity for EMS. It allows the EMS providers to go to the patient's house and provide healthcare services when there's not an emergency. It's a whole new arena for us. MIMS has to provide a study to the legislature by December that talks about these programs and identifies ways to get money to these programs so they can grow. That's one of our big areas. Another area that we're going to be focusing more on is emergency department overcrowding. Now, that's certainly not a new problem. It's been around for years. We took a look at our results, our tracking of emergency department crowding over the past 10 years, and each year yellow alerts have increased. So we have come to the conclusion that some of our approaches aren't working as well as we would like to. We're now working with an entity called the Health Services Cost Review Commission in Maryland. That's the agency that sets the rates for hospitals and makes sure that the hospitals get reimbursement for the care they provide. We think by partnering with them, they're the money folks, we think that hospitals will be more motivated to work to address this problem, and we are just beginning on that effort, and we again have to report to the legislature in December on that. We're also waiting to see what's going to happen in the federal government with health care and what changes might be made to Obamacare, so to speak, and how that will affect Maryland. The big issue there is the loss of support from Medicaid funding. A lot of patients move to Medicaid funding, and that might change, and we're not quite sure how that will affect health care and EMS in Maryland. We're going to keep an eye on that. That's my report. And I would just like to once again thank everybody, thank all the members of the MSFA and President Davis for all your support and hard work this year. We really appreciate it. We look forward to another year, another successful year with the MSFA. Thank you.
Ms. Pat, we can't thank you enough for pleasure to have you as one of our key partners in the group, and I do appreciate your time today and being here. And with that, we have our 125th anniversary mug that it did up for you as well, and we also have a convention bag backstage. We'll give it to you and all. And thank you for your time and your report.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you out here. Of course, Mr. Jim Brown.
Karen Doyle, Senior Vice President.
That's yours.
Thank you. Shock trauma.
And it's now my pleasure to present Ms. Karen Doyle, the Senior Vice President for the Shock Trauma.
Good afternoon. I understand I'm the last one, so should I be 30 minutes or 5 minutes? Okay, all right. Well, it's always a pleasure to be here on behalf of Dr. Scalea and the entire Shock Trauma Center. It's always a privilege to be here with the MSFA, so thank you for having us. I want to thank President Mike Davis for such a great collaborative year together. And I do want to give a thank you to a team of shock trauma that's been here all week. So Terrell Carlson, who is in the audience, and many of you know her, and then Diana Clapp and Lauren Carr, who have staffed a booth. So let me just give you some updates on the Shock Trauma Center. Is it advancing? Let's see if it's, oh, okay. Nope. Tara, is it advancing? How about now?
He's having a computer problem, hang on.
Oh, hang tight, computer problem. There we go. Okay. All right, so let me tell you about our volumes. You know, nationally, trauma volumes have been trending down, which is actually a very good thing due to all types of engineering and legislative rules. And so we see a little bit of that as well with the trends going down. But we do continue to get the sickest of the sick, which is the right thing given our protocols in the state of Maryland. I have updated all of you in the last couple of years on two innovative units that we've also created, which is the critical care resuscitation area, which is like a trauma resuscitation area. So we receive all types of critically ill patients from around the state of Maryland, and those volumes continue to go up, as well as our lung rescue unit, which is a unit devoted to lung injury and illness. Two brand new units that are I guess they're early in the infancy, about 2 years each, and they're the only units of its kind in the country. So again, shock trauma remains state of the art. We work very hard, as you know, to minimize our lost interhospital transfers because 25% of shock trauma's volumes come from interhospital transfers. And the only time you really see where we might lose a transfer, we always say yes and we always accept, but based on our capacity, it might take us a little bit longer. And there's certain months of the year, as you know, that we are incredibly busy. So we work hard not to lose intra-hospital transfers. And so far, we have made progress in FY17 where we have not lost as many as we did in FY16. You can see up there the number of air transports from MSP versus interhospital transports, our critical care transport team. We continue, our length of stay at the Shock Trauma Center is about 9 days. We're working very hard on reducing that length of stay so that we can continue to increase our capacity and accept the sickest of the sick without having any delays. Part of that decreasing the length of stay is making sure that we're able to transfer patients to rehabilitation centers and skilled nursing facilities across the state. Our OR volume, while you might see that our trauma volume is going down just a tad, our OR volume increases. And what does that mean? That means our patients are really sick and need to get to definitive care, need to get to the operating room. Thus, we're getting the right patients to the trauma center. Our clinic volume, where we see patients, Our patients are our patients for life, and so we will see them in the outpatient clinic. And because we've opened up 1 or 2 clinics outside of the hospital, we're able to see patients in their community and back in their community. As you know, many patients travel 3-4 hours to come to us. So we've decreased the clinic volume at the mothership, but have increased it in other outpatient areas so patients can be seen by our shock trauma doctors in locations close to home. I want to tell you a little bit about the GO team. The GO team is a team of 1 physician, either an emergency room doctor or an orthopedic doctor, and a nurse anesthetist. And EMS is able to call shock trauma and ask for the GO team if you find it to be a difficult extrication. We're not called out a lot, but when we are called out, it is integral that we be there. And so we partner with MSP, EMS, and MIMS to get our team there. So from July to March, we sent 9 GO team requests. And you can see it's all over the state. And so it's a huge service that we provide. We're able to get to the scene, usually provide some type of definitive care, whether it's to intubate them and get an airway going or to administer pain management while we get the patient out of the vehicle or building or whatever it could be. Organ and tissue donation, as you know, is incredibly important to all of us, but at the Shock Trauma Center, we do provide, sadly, we are the institution that serves the state with the largest amount of organs as well. And so our organ donation rate is 57%, even though we're trying to get it to 75%. And we work very hard with our system to make sure that we talk about organ donation and that we get all of our citizens in the state of Maryland to become organ donors. I'd like to highlight our global outreach. We have a trauma observation program, and you can see that we get all kinds of healthcare providers from all over the world, Asia, North America, South America, Europe, the Middle East. In FY16, we had 127 observers, and so far this year we've had 72 observers. Why is this important to you? Well, it's important because what we do as the Shock Trauma Center, we highlight the system, and we highlight how extraordinary we are as a system, that we have this collaborative relationship with MIMS, MSP, MIFRI, MSFA, and the Shock Trauma Center, and that together is better. And so we have people from all over the world coming to see the state of Maryland, how we operate our EMS system. So kudos to all of you for helping us to be that center of excellence. As you know, prevention is part of our mission, and we have thus far conducted 1,100 events this year with over 11,000 attendees. We would much rather not be in business, right? It would be great if we weren't in business, but we are, and we try really hard to prevent people from getting to our facility. And we do that through trauma prevention, violence prevention. We work with youth to show them opportunities for the future, and then we work with the adults remanded by the courts for DUI, DWI. And then, of course, we partner. Our EMS outreach and education activities is critical. This is central to our partnership, right? We have an observation program with our EMS providers, and we've had 223 EMS providers come through the trauma resuscitation unit. 97 come through our critical care area. We do all kinds of tours, courses, and we participate in Winterfest and EMS conferences, and are delighted to do so because, as you will hear us continue to say, that we are nothing without one another. I'm just going to quickly tell you that for all of you, the Shock Trauma Center, the current helipad was built in 1989. We've struggled refurbishing it because we've only had one helipad, and we get 20 admissions a day. Fortunately, with the expansion of the new building, we have a second helipad, and we are close to finishing. We started our refurbishment in September of 16, and it will be finished in September of 17. I won't go through those milestones. We're almost completed there. We did have 2 events We put in a helipad emergency response team so that if we had, we worked very hard to not shut down our helipad so that we could always continue to serve the citizens of the state of Maryland. We had 2 events where we had to launch the helicopter helipad emergency response team, and we thought we were going to have to open up our alternate landing zone, which is right near BGE, and it's called Spring Gardens, and we have an alternate landing zone there. But fortunately, we did not have to open up our alternate landing zone. We had 2 really great preparedness responses for this emergency response team, and we can't wait to September so that there are absolutely no need to open up that alternate landing zone, and we can continue to serve the citizens of the state of Maryland. Okay, let's see. I want to thank MIMS and MSP for their incredible partnership as we have created this alternate landing zone and the helipad emergency response team. Dr. Alcorta has been awesome, and certainly MSP. We couldn't do it without them either. We had our shock trauma gala in April. Up the slide. Yeah, the slide's not up there. We had our shock trauma gala in April. Many of MSFA was there. 2 tables of MSFA. We're always delighted to have MSFA. It's a wonderful highlight and celebration of the entire system. Our next one is April 28th, 2018. So we look forward to having MSFA there. I am completed my presentation. I do want to say one thing. Last year, I have to put this on, I was humbly nominated into the Hall of Fame by past President Johnny Roth, along with my colleague Tara Carlson down here sitting in the front row. I wasn't here to receive that, and Johnny surprised me at an EMS board or SEMSAC meeting. And I just want to tell all of you what a privilege it is having this honor as a Hall of Famer for EMS, and I know I speak on behalf of Tara. And so we can't do it without our volunteer firefighters and EMS providers. And from the bottom of our hearts, we are grateful to serve you and the citizens of the state of Maryland. I hope you have a wonderful conference. I wish the next president all of the best and look forward to our collaborative relationship. Peace to all of you.
Don't go too far yet.
Not too far yet? Okay.
Don't go too far yet.
All right. Put my hat back on.
Yeah, keep your hat on.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you.
That's no
Thank
big
you.
deal. Well, I can't say enough thank you. This is one of our greatest partners, and we're working on a long-lasting, healthier, stronger relationship than ever before. They have helped us tremendous ways. You know, shock trauma gets the worst of the worst out there, and in my opinion, how better to treat the worst of the worst than to get the input from shock trauma and how to do better things in the field in the fire and EMS service than with their input. It's the most valuable asset I think we have in this state and one of the best systems in the world, obviously. And combine that with our other key partners, you know, we can't go wrong. I think this state is the best for many reasons. It started here and it can still come from here to teach the world better ways in emergency health services and volunteer fire and rescue services too. So with that, I thank you for your time today and your report, and present to you our 125th anniversary convention mug. You also get a bag in the back. You'll actually exchange that for the bag in the back. And then also present you with our joint coin, myself and Barbara Sue Nelson did on the coin, the ladies president for your collection.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Good dear. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, real quick. We have some, again, we have in-service training seminar today in the convention hall and tomorrow. And the bag bingo is tonight in the Bayfront Ballroom. The doors open at 5 p.m. Don't forget Monday night family night at Jolly Roger Amusement Park tonight. That starts at 6:30. If you didn't already, tickets are available downstairs for a little bit. And the exhibition's open tomorrow at 10 a.m. And also, don't forget voting tomorrow morning at 0800 for 2 hours. So starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning for 2 hours for voting. And with that, we'll call on Reverend Charles Barnhart.
Please rise for prayer. Let us pray. Gracious Father, we give you thanks for all the events that have taken place here today, and we ask you to be with us as we continue into tomorrow. We ask you to be with us this evening as we enjoy this town and the festivities that are being offered by this association. And we ask you to grant us a safe rest and bring us back here safe tomorrow. And these things we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
We will now recess until 8:30 tomorrow morning. Be safe.